As of the time that I'm filming this, it is currently the beginning of November 2024, which means that we are nearing the end of our winter forecast season. So this is going to be our final winter forecast update before I publish my official winter forecast for this upcoming winter season of 2024 to 2025. In today's forecast to the evolution of the winter forecast on this channel, we're going to be going over all the latest information that we have for your winter season. All of this and more, all coming up in just a bit. All right, now as the title has mentioned, this La Niña is going to be a little different. So if you know what a La Niña is, which is the change in wind direction and temperature in the equatorial Pacific, known in a specific region called the Niña 3.4 region. This region is currently going into La Niña, where we have stronger trade winds, which allows for upwelling and the upwelling of colder water to the surface. This influences a lot of global weather patterns. And here in the US specifically, we see a lot of our weather dynamics influenced by this specific pattern. But that is not the only pattern that plays into our winter season. Some of the other patterns which I mentioned in our last video, I'm not going to go too deep into them into this video just for time's sake, but if you do want more information, you can go watch my last video that I uploaded right before this one. We are looking at the QBO, the NAO, the PNA pattern, as well as the Arctic Oscillation. Now, much like the La Niña, these are not the only patterns that influence our winter season, but in my opinion, these are some of the most influential, and these are some of the biggest ones for my consideration for this winter forecast. Now, the first map that you're taking a look at here is our temperature anomaly forecast map, and here what we're looking at is basically if you're expecting normal temperatures above average or below average temperatures for your winter season. So here starting off, we're gonna start off here for that light blue region there up in the northern United States. Now here, this region indicates slightly below average temperatures. So this means you're expecting a couple degrees on average cooler temperatures than what you typically see in a winter season. Now, a lot of these areas are typically very cold in the winter season. Okay, anywhere from the Pacific Northwest down there in Oregon, all the way over to the Great Lakes, these areas see some significantly cold temperatures in the winter season. Obviously, some of those areas along the Pacific Northwest and especially along the Pacific Northwest coastline see temperate conditions, so you don't see as cool. But usually in the Midwest or even up there near Montana, we do see a lot of cold conditions, sometimes well into the negatives. But this year we are expecting some slightly cooler conditions. So in this light blue region, you would be expecting a couple degrees below that, typically ranging from around 11 to 13 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, obviously, those are not set numbers. This is just an explanation to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Now, moving on to those darker colors there, we have a darker blue region. We have two of these actually, one in the Pacific Northwest, including Oregon and Washington, and we also see one for much of the Midwest and even into portions of the Great Lakes. So we're gonna start off here for the Pacific Northwest. Here you can notice some cooler conditions. So these are our below average temperatures. So let's give you an example this time. So let's say your average temperature is around 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So maybe here you'll be seeing more closer to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So you'll notice a bit of a colder change, a lot cooler temperatures here in the Pacific Northwest. Now we see the same scenario over here for portions of the Midwest and portions of the Western Great Lakes. Here you're also expecting a lot of those Arctic intrusions. Okay, so we're gonna see some powerful cold fronts being brought down through a troughing. So we're gonna see a deep trough in the central United States here, kind of coming down into portions of Iowa, Missouri, and dipping down through there. You can see the motion, the general motion that is, of the jet stream at the bottom portion of that light blue region. So here you're expecting those colder conditions to linger in this dark blue region, and overall I am expecting you to have a colder winter this winter season. Now we're taking a look at that light orange region there. So we see this stretching from portions of Southern California all the way up into the northeast coastline. So this area, much like the light blue region, is a slight change, but this time it's in the positive direction. So we're expecting slightly above average temperatures for this region. So let's say your average temperature, we're gonna take a random one, maybe 50 degrees Fahrenheit, okay, if you're down there in portions of Alabama. So 50 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe you'll be seeing more 52 to 55 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. So it's a slight change, and obviously you can manipulate this to whatever your typical temperature is in a given winter season, but overall slightly warmer conditions. Now for some of you this won't mean much, but for some of you snowfall lovers up there in the Northeast and in New England, this may be kind of a disappointing news, and we will get into that later on our snowfall anomaly forecast map. Now moving down to this relatively isolated dark orange region here, we have above average temperatures. So this area typically sees fairly warm temperatures in the winter season, but we are expecting a bit of ridging to escalate over this area throughout throughout much of the winter season, and I do believe this is going to keep things pretty warmer down here for portions of southeastern New Mexico and western Texas. All right, now moving on to our next forecast map, we are taking a look at our precipitation anomaly forecast map. And this map is designed to show you whether you're expecting normal, above, or below average conditions precipitation-wise. So first off, I want you to notice these two light green regions. We're going to take a look first up at the Pacific Northwest, and here you can see we're expecting a lot of precipitation to come through here, and this might increase to slightly above average conditions for a lot of you in this light green region. Now, as you know, the Pacific Northwest and a lot of these northern Rockies typically see a great deal of precipitation, especially in the winter season. But this year, with the influence of La Niña and those other weather patterns that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we are expecting a pretty active Pacific jet stream, as well as an interaction of the polar jet stream that is going to come down through here, bringing a fairly active interaction of not only that troughing, but also that moisture that is coming off of the Pacific Ocean. This is going to lead to a pretty stormy pattern up here for the Pacific Northwest, which I do believe for a lot of you will be a fairly snowier winter. Now, further east, we do notice another region. This stretches from portions of eastern Minnesota all the way down through portions of the central United States and then over into the eastern Great Lakes. Now, this region is also going to be caused by a bit of troughing in the central United States. So we're going to see that pattern from the jet stream kind of dip down here through the central United States, bringing with it a lot of that colder air, but also a lot of precipitation with it as well. Now, I also want to mention that I am expecting a bit more of an active pattern of least cyclogenesis, leading to the development of low pressure systems off of those eastern Rocky Mountains. So if you see there in Colorado, you see how this precipitation pattern originates just east of those Rocky Mountains in Colorado. And if you don't know what least cyclogenesis is, to summarize it up in a very brief statement, it basically is the process of descending air off of the eastern side of these Rocky Mountains, and where it stirs up a bit of vorticity, which leads to the development of low pressure systems. And obviously those are our storm systems that are going to be moving up through this area. They're going to follow the path of that jet stream. They're going to hitch a ride onto that jet stream and take it up northeast through a lot of these areas highlighted in this region. So not only do we have the influence of those northern storm tracks, but we also have the influence of these developing systems off of the eastern side of the Rockies, which will likely bring a bit more of an active precipitation pattern for those of you in the central United States and up there for the other highlighted areas. Now, the next regions I want you to take a look at are those darker green regions. These are our above average regions for precipitation. Now, the first one again is going to be up in the Pacific Northwest, and this region typically sees a very significant amount of rainfall and overall precipitation already. So we are expecting an increase on top of that, and quite a big difference. So we are expecting a lot more precipitation to come off as we talked about those patterns. That jet stream is going to bring a lot of moisture over here, as it already does, but we are expecting a bit of a stronger action that's only going to force more of that moisture onto the coastline, and then we're going to see a bit of orographical influence with those mountains, those northern Cascades, that's going to lead to that already existing process of the formation of precipitation, but we see a greater influence from that due to the stronger influence of that jet stream. Now, we see the same conditions over here for portions of the central United States and the Great Lakes. Now, this obviously is not caused by the orographical influence of the Cascades. This doesn't have any mountain influence. This is actually caused by, again, that least cyclogenesis process that we were talking about off the eastern side of the Rockies, but also a major influence from that troughing that is expected over here for the Midwest and Great Lakes. So we are expecting that troughing to bring a lot of these winter systems down, and obviously this is going to keep this region very wet. Now, you will notice along some of those areas around Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, we are also highlighting just along the coastline of those areas in that dark green. Now, this is from lake effect. So you will also notice lake effect in the other areas along Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, and all those areas up there that typically do see lake effect snowfall. But we are also expecting an influence from not only the winter systems that move through here, but also the influence of the lake effect snowfall. And we will be going more in depth with this on our snowfall anomaly forecast map, the next one up. Now, moving down south there, you will notice a yellow region. Now, this yellow region stretches from portions of Southern California all the way over to southern and east central North Carolina. Now, this region is going to be characterized by slightly below average conditions for precipitation. So with La Niña, we see a weakening of that subtropical jet stream that we usually see a strong influence from in El Nino conditions. So we are expecting a weakened subtropical jet stream that's obviously going to reduce the amount of moisture that is being fed into this area, and we're going to see a decreased amount of precipitation. Now, this doesn't mean for those of you in this area that you're going to be going into a major drought. Don't worry, it's not going to be anything significant, but we are expecting overall drier conditions for your winter season. So for some of you, that may be a good thing. For others, that may not be a good thing. But overall, this is what you're expecting. And finally, again, that isolated region down here for portions of southeastern New Mexico and western Texas. Here we are expecting that ridging and also the influence of the reduction of that subtropical jet stream to influence a weakened pattern of precipitation. So you are expecting dry conditions here, or below average precipitation conditions. So here overall, very dry, and you will notice that a lot of these areas are covered by dry plains or desert, but we are expecting these areas to remain fairly dry this winter as a result. All right, now moving on to our next forecast map. This is our snowfall anomaly forecast map, and this map is designed to show you whether you're expecting normal conditions for snowfall, above average, or below average conditions. Now here I do have to mention, if you are in the blank regions, some of you will not be seeing snowfall, such as those down in the southern United States near the Gulf of Mexico. But those of you who aren't in a colored region up there for portions of Montana, the Dakotas, and Minnesota, you are still expecting to see snowfall. You're just expecting to see your normal conditions. So I don't want to give you the idea that you're not going to see snowfall at all. You're still expecting to see snowfall, just at your normal rate. All right, now moving on to the first region here, we're actually going to start off with that slightly below average region down there for the southwestern United States. And this area is a region combined of higher elevation areas as well as some areas in the western plains that typically see snowfall in a winter season. So we are expecting here, with those drier and warmer conditions that we are expecting for this area, obviously those aren't really favorable conditions for a lot of snowfall. So you are still expecting to see snowfall, and for some of those higher elevations, you're still expecting to see a significant amount of snowfall, but overall you're expecting a slight decrease in your snowfall. Now, unfortunately, this is kind of where it gets a little disappointing. A lot of people live on the East Coast, and especially in the mid-Atlantic. So anywhere from the Smoky Mountains all the way from the southern Appalachians all the way up along the northeastern coastline and into portions of New England, we are expecting decreased snowfall. Now, this is not due to a decrease in precipitation. A lot of these areas here are not in that below average precipitation region. What this does have to do with is those slightly warmer conditions. So with an interaction of not only those slightly warmer conditions, but also an interaction from those above average conditions along the Atlantic Ocean. So we see above average sea surface temperatures that are going to be influencing a lot of warmer air lingering near the surface. And obviously this also can mix to that 850 millibar level, and obviously those temperatures can kind of mix around and create some warmer air aloft, which also would not be favorable for a lot of snowfall at the surface. So this doesn't mean you're not going to see snowfall accumulation. You're still expecting to see snowfall accumulation this season, depending on how much you typically see in a winter season in this region. But overall, I am expecting a slight reduction in your total snowfall accumulation for this winter season. Now, the next regions we're going to be taking a look at are those light blue regions. Now, these regions are slightly above average conditions. So we're going to start off there for portions of the Pacific Northwest. And here you can see a wide area. Again, this follows suit with that slightly above average precipitation area there. So we are expecting slightly above average snowfall. Obviously, we see those cooler conditions rushing in and above average moisture. So we are expecting slightly above average snowfall for you guys up there in that light blue region. Now, we also see the same scenario over here for portions of the Midwest and the central United States, as well as some portions of the eastern United States. So here you are also expecting a pretty busy pattern for winter systems. Again, we mentioned that least cyclogenesis process that's going to be shoving those storms northeastward once they hitch a ride on that jet stream. And we also are expecting a bit of troughing, actually persistent troughing in the eastern United States that will likely bring a lot of winter systems to this area and will obviously increase your snowfall a little bit. All right, and in that final region there, we actually have two of these again, the above average region in the dark blue. We're going to take a look at the Pacific Northwest. Now this matches with that above average precipitation pattern indicated on the last map. And you can see here above average snowfall is what you're expecting anywhere from the peak of the Cascades, those northern Cascades there, all the way down to the coastline. If you typically see snowfall, you're expecting to see above average levels of that. And finally, over here for portions of the Midwest and the Great Lakes, we are expecting above average snowfall. Now, I do want to go a little deeper into this, as I said I would. We are seeing the interaction of those winter systems. Obviously, we talked about the troughing that's going to bring those down. We talked about the least cyclogenesis that's going to be bringing those systems up from the Rockies, but we're also talking about that influence from lake effect snowfall. Now, these lakes are very warm right now, and they typically are around this time of year. But because we've had above average temperatures throughout much of the summer and fall, we are seeing these lakes really warm right now. Okay, they are above average in temperature, and the surface temperature of these lakes are very steamy. So when this interacts with those below average temperatures that we were expecting, which we saw there for much of the western Great Lakes, but that colder air will still exist even outside of the below average area. We're still expecting cooler air for winter that's going to rush down over these lakes. And when we see those powerful cold fronts come through, that's only asking for trouble with the lake effect snowfall. So we're likely going to see some pretty active lake effect snowfall events. Now that doesn't just happen by itself. We also will see these winter systems come through, and the lake effect snowfall can still exist with these winter systems. So not only do you have the active winter systems, but you also have that lake effect coming into play, and this obviously results in above average snowfall. I am expecting that for your winter season here. All right, now on our final forecast map here, we are taking a look at our overall forecast map, which gives you an idea of precise regions that will give you an idea of the overall weather pattern that you're expecting to see this winter. So before we get started with any of the regions, I do want you to notice the pattern of the jet stream. This is not a standard pattern. This will deviate, and this may even go zonal at times, which means it goes completely linear across the United States. Though I don't think that'll happen too much, that is also a possibility. But I do need you to know that this is basically an average of what the jet stream will look like throughout our winter season as of what we're forecasting right now. So what you can see so far, we're going to start up there for the Pacific Northwest, and we do see wintry. So this is going to be a pretty active season here. I don't think you'll see every single winter system event resulting from a winter storm, but I do believe a lot of these patterns will be influenced from that orographical lifting that we talked about that will bring a lot of that precipitation off of the Pacific coastline, and that will bring a lot of moisture up here and influencing a lot of that snowfall. You also will see some pretty wintry conditions, just overall scattered precipitation, I do think, a lot of the time. Now that doesn't mean every single day you're going to see snowfall, but overall I do believe a pretty active winter pattern here. Now you also will see those winter systems coming through, but I didn't want you to think that that was just going to be the only way that you're receiving your snowfall. Now moving down south there, we do see that green region there. This is chilly, sometimes active. So basically what we're saying here is that you're still expecting those chilly conditions. You're still expecting that cold that is pretty typical for this area. Obviously the further west you go towards the Pacific coastline, you get more temperate there and you don't see as chilly conditions, but overall you're expecting those cooler conditions here that are typical with the winter season. But also what I mean by sometimes active is sometimes we will see some deeper troughs in the west that will bring those winter systems and those weather systems down through this area, keeping a pretty active precipitation pattern. I don't think that's going to lead to any above average precipitation. I think you're pretty standard with that, but typically that's what we see happen in a winter season. So it's not like you're not going to see anything. You could see some pretty decent winter storms coming through this area, but overall it's not going to be very frequent. Now moving just northeast there, we see that purple region, deep freeze. This area, as you know, if you live here, it's very cold in the winter. We sometimes see persistent negative temperatures, sometimes as low as -40 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe even colder depending on where you live. But overall this winter, I am expecting those very cold conditions. You know, sometimes we can see those strong, potent cold fronts move through here. This is going to bring a lot of those colder temperatures from the north and from the Arctic down through this region. And with that persistent troughing there indicated by the jet stream, I do believe that a lot of these areas are going to be relatively colder this winter. Now moving just east there, we do see another region that is colored similarly to the wintry region over there to the west, but we are expecting winter storms here. So pretty active winter storms. Now before anybody gets ahead of themselves, this does not mean you're going to see winter storms every week, every day, not even every month. We might have a month where we go pretty quiet here in this region. You might not see anything at all. But overall, I believe this is going to be pretty active with winter storms. I believe we're going to see a very good influence from that lake effect snowfall. And with that least cyclogenesis that I mentioned, along with that troughing that's going to bring those systems down from the north, I do believe that we're going to see a very active winter storm pattern here. So overall, pretty decent for you snowfall lovers up there in the north. All right, now moving down further south, this is the dreaded warmer region. For some of you, that's not dreaded. Maybe you like the warmer, but for a lot of snowfall lovers, you don't want to be in this region. And again, this doesn't mean you're not going to see any snowfall. This just means that overall, I am expecting your winter season to be relatively warmer than what is typical in a winter season. Now in our final region here, we see drier. Again, this doesn't mean you're going to be going to a drought. I know the way I made this map, it looks like it's a desert, but that doesn't mean that you're expecting major drought conditions. That is just to indicate that you're expecting drier conditions overall. So overall, you're not expecting major drought conditions, just a little drier than usual. All right, I want to thank you all so much for watching today's forecast. If you did enjoy this video, I would ask that you consider subscribing for more US forecasts free of charge. And I would also ask you consider following the Weather at a Glance official Facebook page for more inside information and complimentary personal forecasts when you message me on that Facebook page. I want to give a huge shout out to our channel members, Chris Betty and Jay Case. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and what we do here. And with that, I will see you in the next video.